The Lord spoke to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up and go to Nineveh. Got some things you need to say. The folks down there are wicked. They need someone to preach. But Jonah packed his suitcase and headed for the beach. He took a ship in Joppa for Tarshish. He was bound. He paid his fare and got on board and thought he'd not be found. Now Jonah thought that this would work and he could flee the Lord. But when the ship got underway, the wind was blowing hard. That boat was rocking up and down, about to break in two. The sailors all were so afraid, not knowing what to do. Each cried out unto his God and threw cargo from the ship. They thought the lighter load might help it not to flip. Meanwhile, Jonah has left the upper deck and he's fast asleep. The captain comes and wakes him up and makes a little speech. He was telling Jonah, "To your God, please make a plea. Ask him to save our ship from sinking in the sea." But all the sailors' ardent pleas could not achieve their aim, and so they cast some lots to see who was to blame. They cast the lots there on the deck, and when it all was done, every time they rolled the dice, Jonah was the one. They said, "It seems you are the one who's messing up our trip. So could you kindly tell us what you're doing on our ship? We want to know just who you are, what kind of work you do." He said, "I serve the living God, and I was born Hebrew." Well, that shook them up a little bit and added to their dread, 'cause Jonah told them once before, was from the Lord he fled. "What shall we do?" they cried, as the storm still loudly roared. Jonah said, "I guess you could always throw me overboard." Well, they turned the ship around and rowed to save old Jonah's hide, but they couldn't beat that storm no matter how they tried. Seemed the only option left, so they wouldn't sink, was picking up poor Jonah, throw him in the drink. To be sure this was the course, they made one last request. "God, keep us safe and free from guilt. We'll trust you for the best." Then they grabbed old Jonah, boldly threw him in. When he hit the water, sea got calm again. Well, them sailors didn't think about it twice. They worshiped God and gave him thanks and made a sacrifice. Now, you would think old Jonah's done, 'cause he's sure sinking down. But God has got another plan, so Jonah will not drown. As he submerges neath the waves, he hadn't got a hunch. God has called a giant fish to have Jonah for his lunch. 3 days and nights he gets to spend down in that fish's tummy. He starts to think he'll change his ways, stop acting like a dummy. And now he knows he is inside a fish and probably should be dead. He thinks it might be good to pray, and this is what he said. "I know that I've been foolish in how I've chose to act. I'm at the ocean's bottom with no hope, that's a fact. In all the things that happened, it seems I still have breath. And God, you are the only one that saves a man from death. So I worship you and I won't get caught in idols anymore." God heard his prayer, told that fish, go barf him on the shore. When Jonah hit the beach, God spoke to him again. "Get ye hence to Nineveh. You're preaching there, my friend." Now, Jonah learned his lesson and didn't dare back talk. To preach the streets of Nineveh would take a 3-day walk. His message was real simple, with no intent to boast. 40 days from now, Nineveh will be toast. Now, Jonah gave his message with a sort of hopeful tone, Nineveh's destruction by fire and brimstone. But the folks there in Nineveh believed that God had spoke. Men and women, boys and girls, all knew this was no joke. The king took off his royal robes, came down from his throne, put sackcloth on, declared a fast. Even dogs don't chew a bone. We must repent and stop all crime, turn from wrong things we cherish. It might be God will change his mind, and we won't have to perish. Those folks obeyed the word like Jonah was their pastor. God liked the choice they made, stopped his planned disaster. When Jonah saw what happened, he didn't think it wise. He really didn't like these folks, is all we can surmise. He prayed and told the Lord of his dissatisfaction. He seemed to know right from the start that God might take this action. He knew that when you choose to repent, God can make correction. So that's why he took that ship that went the wrong direction. Jonah was so angry, filled with vengeful strife. He told the Lord he wished he'd just take his life. God's response to Jonah's fury was asking in reply, "Jonah, what do you think all your anger justifies?" But Jonah left the city. He's going to find a place to pout. Thought he'd sit and watch the town, sort of wait it out. But God had other plans. He caused a gourd to grow. Once again to Jonah he would love and mercy show. Jonah liked the comfort brought by this brand new shade. The next day, God sent a worm to eat that leafy blade. The plant is gone, the sun is strong, the wind makes Jonah sigh. He tells the Lord again he thinks he'd rather die. But God again ignores his plea and tries to help his prophet see this comfort craved for shade no longer there to all those lives in Nineveh could in no way compare. And with that fact, the book of Jonah abruptly does conclude. But there lingers still some facts on Jonah's attitude. From start to finish, Jonah plays a very selfish part, exposing very clearly Jonah's selfish heart. He knew the grace of God when he chose to repent, but when trouble came again, back to selfishness he went. It didn't matter wrong or right, Jonah couldn't love a Ninevite. So when God calls on you to act, keep in mind this pertinent fact. You'll have no joy in God's part until God supplies a Christ-like heart.